Hi there! Welcome to Boy Meets Quilt. I'm Andrew Vay Hansen. You may notice that I'm in a different location than normal for these trunk show videos, and that's because the quilt I'm talking about today is actually hanging over our bed. And so this is my first and so far only t-shirt quilt that I've ever made. And this t-shirt quilt came about because my husband, Corey, loves music of all sorts, but particularly alt-rock, pop type music, and so he goes to a lot of concerts. And we live in New York City where there's plenty of bands playing and touring, and it's a great music city. So lucky for him, he gets opportunities to go to a lot of concerts. And he has made it kind of a tradition to every concert he goes to, he tries to buy a t-shirt. So he has a lot of t-shirts, and he got rid of a bunch of them, but before he got rid of them, I asked him to pick out some that had special meaning to him or that he wanted to remember, and I would make a t-shirt quilt, and we would hang it over our bed. And so finally, after years of waiting and being, lazy about trying to figure out how to make a t-shirt quilt, I finally did it. I did it this past spring in 2021, and he picked out all the quilt t-shirts that he wanted to use, and as I was making the quilt, I decided, I wanted the fronts of the t-shirts to really be the focus with their cool graphics, the names of the bands, that sort of thing. And most of the t-shirts had the list of tour cities and dates on the back. And I decided to use the back to fill in the sashing and borders around the quilt. And as I was piecing it all together, I kind of really loved this idea of how it started to look like when you're, at least in New York, and I assume other big cities, when there's construction, they always put walls up around the block. And a lot of times you'll find the walls are covered with band posters that people put up as bands are coming to different places. And so I kind of liked that this was starting to kind of look like that. I mean, not totally, obviously, but the idea that, these posters are pasted over other posters where you can kind of see the words, the dates, things like that. And then I particularly, when I was making the sashing, I tried to either get like part of the name of the band in the sashing, or New York and the date of the concert, so that it had even more of a special memory, so that Corey could remember that was the actual date that he saw the concert. And so it came together pretty well. Like I said, I'd never made a t-shirt quilt before. You have to make sure you stabilize the t-shirts because the fabric is knit, which sews very differently from woven fabrics. And then I would say the one thing I really learned making this t-shirt quilt that I didn't see online when I was researching how to make t-shirt quilts was that what really helped me was when I was stitching the blocks together, I ended up using a walking foot, and that really helped stabilize both layers, because there's just, when you have stabilizer on both of these, you're working with two blocks and stitching them together, that's basically 4 layers of fabric. It's just a lot of fabric for a regular presser foot on a domestic machine to work with. And so the walking foot really helped even that out, even that flow out as I was sewing on my machine, and so it kept everything even. Before I started using the walking foot, when I was trying to sew the 2 blocks together, they would end up sliding, and you'd get like a good ½ inch off from when I would sew them together, and that was no good. So the walking foot made all the difference. I highly recommend use a walking foot when you're piecing the quilt. Not just, I know a lot of people use walking foot presser foots for their quilting or for the binding, things like that, but just regular piecing with the t-shirt quilt, I highly recommend it if you have stabilizer on the back of all of your fabric. And so then once I pieced it all together, I quilted it, I did free motion quilting, and as you can probably see, you can't even really see the quilting, at least not from here. We'll take some closer shots, and I took some photos of the back of the quilt that show you the details of the quilting a little better. But I really didn't want the quilting to be noticeable at all, because I really wanted the focus of the quilt to be the graphics of the t-shirts. That was the most important part of the quilt for me. And so that's when someone sees this quilt, that's what they should be focused on. So most of my quilting was just a little bit of echoing, some outlining of the graphics, things that you wouldn't even notice unless you look at it really close up. So I'm wondering who out there has made a t-shirt quilt? Anybody? If so, please put it in the comments. Let me know any tips and techniques you might have to share with everyone. And if you haven't made a t-shirt quilt, have you thought about it, but then thought maybe it's too complicated to try? Go ahead and put your questions in. See if someone can give you some inspiration. I found it easier than I thought it was going to be. I really thought it was going to be a chore. And actually, you know, even putting the stabilizer on the fabric wasn't that much. It was just one extra step, and then once that extra step was done, it was smooth sailing, just like everything else. Especially once I figured out how to I should use my walking foot for the piecing. And then it was just like putting together a regular quilt. And because these blocks were so big, it actually, even though this is a relatively large wall hanging, it didn't really take me that much time to put together. So let's see if we can get a closer look at some of the quilting. Okay, so here is the t-shirt quilt. I am currently standing on my bed, so if you hear it creak, that's me walking towards the quilt on my mattress. It's kind of hard to see the quilting in this light, but you can kind of see here I actually got a little creative and made some feathers for this crow. But for the most part, the quilting is just echoing the graphic. In this block, I just traced around the animals, so you can't even really see my quilting. You can see it on the back very well, but I didn't even do any echoing in the white. I did some echoing down here and did some matchstick quilting around the words. And then you can see here how in the sashing I used the backs of the quilts, of the t-shirts, and that's how I filled in the sashing and the borders. So here we go, New York, October 23rd. That's when he saw Vintage Trouble in Capital Cities. Or no, sorry, Fits in the Tantrums in Capital Cities. I am not a concert person, so I don't know all of these bands that he went to see. And so, yeah, that's a little bit of a close-up of this quilt. And so, that's my t-shirt quilt. I didn't really come up with a creative title for this one. I basically just call it A Few of Corey's Concert Tees, which is exactly what it is. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit. I didn't go into detail about t-shirt quilts, but hopefully you learned a little bit. And if you want to learn more, there are tons of great tutorials on YouTube and elsewhere on the internet. And I highly recommend it. It's a great way to keep some memories and display them in your home. Or even better, help someone else keep memories and give them to that person as a gift so that they can hold on to it forever. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos coming up, and I'll see you then.